Chapter 61. Gerald really wants to die. Oh sure, T. What's up? Did you go out today without reading the almanac? Why did you get slapped by Charlie one after another? Even if he killed himself, this painting turned out to be real, and it was worth more than 200,000. However, he has already said his bold words. What should he do now? Should he really eat the table? Impossible. When the car burns you can buy it again, but how can the table be eaten? If you really eat it, don't people want to die? Other classmates also ridiculed him at this time. Oh, Gerald, you said to eat the table yourself, don't you regret it again at this time? Yes, everyone is still waiting for your performance. Don't know who slapped the table but a voice came, Brother Gerald, please start your performance. Gerald's expression was extremely ugly, and he blurted out, everyone, classmates, don't you need to be so downhearted at this time? Callous? Charlie said with a smile, you provoked this matter yourself. Everyone just urged you to fulfill your promises. Why do you get down? Gerald knew that he couldn't get over with this crop today, so he could only endure his anger. He said in an annoying voice, I was impulsive just now. I didn't know it. I apologize to Charlie and everyone. I hope everyone will be able to forgive. Seeing that he suddenly softened, everyone was very surprised. Is this still Gerald? When did he admit it? But Gerald had no choice. What to do? If he doesn't admit that, he's to eat the table, it's impossible to eat it. If he acts shamelessly, he must have committed public anger, and everyone still doesn't know how to ridicule him. Therefore, the only way at the moment is to admit the mistake, and only then can he overcome this hurdle. Sure enough, as soon as he admitted, some classmates said, oh, it is not easy for Gerald to admit his mistake and apologize. Besides, it is impossible for everyone to really force others to eat the table, so let's forget it. That's right, forget it. It's impossible to eat a table, no one has eaten a table, let's start it quickly. Charlie also knew that it was impossible for Gerald to eat at the table, but now that he admits it, his goal has been achieved. If you pretend to be forced, you have to clean up. However, it is not enough for you to pretend to be so coercive and to tidy up like this. It is just the beginning, and there will be more miserable waiting for him later. So he said, since Gerald has admitted his mistake and apologized, forget about eating the table. Today is the day when Stephen Hotel opened, so don't steal the limelight. Gerald breathed a sigh of relief. But in his heart, he can't wait to kill Charlie to relieve his only hatred. Charlie didn't plan to let him go either. He sent a text message to Doris Young, which vice president of the company has the surname White, and his son is Gerald, please check for me. Doris Young quickly replied, there is a vice president named Young Hai White, and his son is named Gerald. What's the matter with the chairman, what is your order? Charlie replied, knock him off and let him go now. Okay, sir. Gerald didn't know that his father had been expelled from the Emgrand Group and was walking through the expulsion process at the Emgrand Group. After finally overcoming the gambling spell, he breathed a sigh of relief, but he was secretly thinking that he must find an opportunity to take revenge on Charlie. Chapter 62. More importantly, he has to find a way to regain his dignity in front of his classmates. Otherwise, after being beaten by Charlie twice in a row, how can he pretend to be formidable in front of classmates in the future? When he didn't know how to get his status back, there was a sudden noise at the door of the hotel. Everyone looked sideways. They saw a group of wicked young people rushing in, all of them wearing tattoos, holding baseball bats, galvanized water pipes, and the like. They were looking very uncomfortable at first sight. Seeing such a group of people rushing in, everyone's expressions changed, especially Stephen and Lily, their eyes full of fear. After the head of the scarred face came in, he first glanced around the hall, then pointed at Stephen, and said with a grin, Boss, don't say hello in advance for such a big business, do you look down on us brothers? Lily's face was pale, she squeezed out a smile, and said, what are you guys doing? Before the opening, Lily heard that there are people collecting protection fees. The last owner of this restaurant was said to have been destroyed by these gangsters and had to transfer this shop out of necessity. However, Lily felt that, in a bright world, would those black people still dare to grab money in broad daylight? That's why she won this place at a low price and was ready to manage it. Unexpectedly, just after opening, these people from the community would come here. Scarface grinned. When doing business here, we naturally want to take care of our brother Biao. We don't want too much. Give us 20% of the stock of your restaurant. In the future, if something happens to you here, it will be covered by us. After that, Scarface said coldly, if you don't give it, then don't blame me for being polite, you have to close the door today. Upon hearing this price, Stephen and Lily both took a breath. 20% of the shares are required for one mouthful. This is daylight grabbing. Give you a minute to think about it. Suddenly, Gerald felt that he had a chance to come forward. So he came out immediately and said, "Who are you guys with?" Scarface asked with a grinning smile, "What are you? Do I have to report to you?" Gerald hummed and said, "Tell you, my father has contacts in both black and white in Aurus Hill. I'll call the leader of the development zone and ask." Scarface looked at him with some fear and tentatively said, "Do you know the leaders of the development zone?" "Of course." Gerald said coldly, "Get out if you don't want to die." Scarface frowned and said, "Well, if you can find someone who can talk, I won't come to this store in the future, but if you can't find it, then don't blame me for being rude to you." Lily said nervously, "Brother Gerald, please contact us, please." Gerald smiled faintly and said, "Don't worry, I will call the leaders of the development zone." The Emgrand Group also has projects in the development zone, and Gerald's father is in charge, so the development zone leader has a lot of contact with his father, and he also knows Gerald. Gerald called the first person directly, and he deliberately raised his voice and said, "Uncle Lee, why are there a bunch of gangsters in the development zone collecting protection fees? They all came to my classmate's business." There was a moment of stunned, and said, "Take off, what's the matter?" Gerald said, "A friend of mine opened a restaurant and encountered a disturbance and asked for protection fees, so I would like to ask District Mayor Lee." The other end pondered for a moment, and said with a slight embarrassment, "I'm sorry to take off. I don't care about these things you said. I'm in a meeting now, so I'll hang up." Without waiting for Gerald to speak, he hung up the phone. Gerald was dumbfounded. What happened? Wasn't District Mayor Lee always cheating on his father, hoping to get more investment from the Emgrand Group? Why didn't he listen now? Where did Gerald know that the news that his father was expelled from the Emgrand Group had spread throughout the leadership of Aurus Hill? Chapter 63. Gerald didn't know the reason, so he was very annoyed. Now that so many classmates are watching, he can only grit his teeth and look for other relationships. Gerald made another call to the person in charge of the district public security branch. This person also has a good relationship with his dad. As soon as the phone was connected, Gerald immediately said, "Director Isaac, it's me, Gerald, I have something to do in the development zone." Having said that, Gerald said the matter again. The other party said embarrassingly, "Gerald, the other party is a Biao's person, a Biao is Mr. Orville's person, you'd better not intervene in this matter." Gerald asked, "Don't you care?" The other side said, "You should also know the status of Orville." Gerald was also a little flustered, and said, "Then you can always save face and help with the other party, right?" The other party chuckled and said, "I really can't sell this face, sorry." Gerald was angry and said, "Isaac, I remember that you still want Emgrand Group to donate a batch of police cars to your branch. Don't you want it?" The other party simply didn't say anything to him, and said coldly, "Gerald, your dad has been expelled from the Emgrand Group, don't you know?" "Expelled? When did it happen?" "Half an hour ago." The other party said, and then said, "You can figure it out by yourself before speaking." After speaking, hung up the phone. Scarface saw him stunned, and said with a sneer, "Why? Can't find anyone?" Gerald was about to open his mouth to speak, but unexpectedly, Scarface slapped him in the face, and Gerald staggered, knocking down the table and chairs. The audience was in an uproar. Everyone's faces were pale, but no one dared to step forward to stop this Scarface. Do you dare to hit me? Gerald covered his face. His pale face showed deep anger. What's wrong with me hitting you? Scarface smiled and kicked Gerald's stomach again, kicking Gerald to the ground, and follow-up was a violent beating. Gerald screamed when he was beaten, but at this moment, no one could help him. After a while, Gerald was beaten into a pig's head. His face covered in blood looked terrible. Gerald was afraid of being beaten, crying and begging, Big brother, I was wrong. Please stop beating. Wrong? Scarface snorted coldly. Well, just do it. You F***ing pretend to be forceful with me. If I don't kill you, how will you get along? After speaking, greet the others, D***MN, give me a hard hit. A crowd rushed up immediately, punching and kicking Gerald. Some people even smashed him with a baseball bat. The scene was terrible. Seeing that Gerald was beaten to death, Scarface walked in front of Stephen at this time and threatened coldly, your friend pretended to be forceful with me. The original 20% has now become 40%. If you don't agree, his fate is what awaits you too. Stephen was panicked, but if he wasted 40% of his shares in one go, wouldn't he become a part-time job holder for this gang? So he plucked up the courage and said, if you want 40%, then you might as well kill me. Scar frowned and said coldly, okay. Then I will fulfill your wish. After speaking, he immediately took out a bright sharp knife from his pocket. Everyone was frightened, and the female classmate even screamed. Charlie saw that the Scar was about to act on Stephen, and immediately blurted out, put the knife down for me. The Scarface turned his head and cursed, who the F***ck wants to die? Chapter 64. Turning his head, he saw Charlie. His eyes were puzzled at first, and then turned into a deep panic. He knelt on the ground with a plop. When everyone hadn't recovered, the Scarface had already lost the sharp knife, slammed his bow left and right, and confessed, Mr. Charlie, sorry. I didn't know you were here. I didn't see you here. Charlie was taken aback for a moment, looked at Scarface, and said, do you know me? Scarface nodded vigorously, and said, Mr. Charlie, I am Brother Biao's subordinate. I have seen you in Classic Mansion. Charlie suddenly realized. It turned out to be so. It was Orville's younger brother who was troubled by Gerald and Harold in Classic Mansion that day, named Biao. This person was Biao's subordinate. No wonder he was so scared to see him. Orville saw that his legs were weak, let alone Orville's younger brother. The classmates were shocked. Lily was also surprised as if in a dream. Everyone did not understand why a fierce Dao brother, a Scarface that even Gerald dared to slap, would kneel down for Charlie, the son-in-law. Still showing a look of fear of Charlie? Claire was also dumbfounded and asked Charlie, what's the matter? Do you know him? Charlie was afraid that she would misunderstand that he had something to do with the underworld, and hurriedly said, I don't know him. When Scarface saw this, he hurriedly said, I don't know Mr. Charlie, and Mr. Charlie doesn't know me. I just keep hearing about Mr. Charlie's name and I admire it. This $8 son-in-law? This man is respecting Charlie? Everyone can't accept this reality, it's really magical. Scarface hurriedly said to Stephen, you are Mr. Charlie's friend. From now on, your restaurant will be covered by me, and I won't charge you any protection fee. If anything happens, I will help you settle it. When this remark came out, everyone was shocked. Lily cried with surprise in her heart. On this day, the contrast is too exciting. Because of Charlie's face, they saved 40 shares. More importantly, this Scarface was willing to cover the hotel for free in order to curry favor with Charlie. Now they can do business with peace of mind. Charlie is a life-saving grace. Stephen was also grateful and said sincerely, Charlie, I am really grateful for this matter. Charlie smiled and said, thanks to me, you are too far-sighted. Scarface looked at Gerald, who had been beaten unconscious, and said with horror and worry, I'm sorry, Mr. Charlie, I beat your friend. Charlie said lightly, it doesn't matter, he is not my friend, just an acquaintance, and there is no friendship. After all, he said again, you send him to the hospital, don't affect the opening ceremony here. Scarface nodded immediately, then we will send him to the hospital. Mr. Charlie, you continue, we won't bother. After finishing speaking, he hurriedly greeted the brothers, took up the unconscious Gerald, and hurried away. Everyone looked at Charlie's eyes, from disdain to surprise, from surprise to awe. No one knows why Charlie has such large energy. This live-in son-in-law seems to have suddenly become another person. At the banquet, many people came to curry favor with Charlie, including Lily, who was the first to look down on Charlie. Lily has now worshipped Charlie as a true god, and she kept expressing her gratitude and even offered a permanent free bill. Charlie didn't care about it, he just gave Stephen a face, and it was a little trouble for Stephen. But in the eyes of others, what he did today has been a bit magical. Everyone wants to know what happened to this live-in son-in-law who ate soft rice. Chapter 65. Claire was also very curious about what happened today. First, Charlie's BMW 520, why on earth is it twice as fast as Gerald's BMW? 540? Then there was Charlie's ancient painting of hundreds of thousands. Also, why does Charlie know people in Underworld, and the people give him a lot of face? On the way back, Charlie explained to her. He told Claire that this BMW 520 was a test-driving car modified by a Ford store. In order to make users mistakenly think that this car is very powerful, he made a little modification. Claire didn't know much about cars, so she believed it silly. As for the ancient paintings, it has been explained before. However, the Scarface thing is a bit tricky. After all, what he called Mr. Charlie one by one was called diligence, and Charlie couldn't explain it. In the end, he can only say that this Scarfaced eldest brother is a relative of a friend of his own. He had seen him at a friend's party before, and he also respected him because of his friend's face. Claire felt that something was wrong, but seeing Charlie's certainty, she knew that it was useless to ask further, so she didn't ask more. Elsa has been observing Charlie, and she feels that Charlie is not easy, so she decided to observe him in the future to see what secrets he has. Gerald is said to be miserable. He was in a coma when he was sent to the hospital. His father was expelled from the Emgrand group and was found to have used his position for personal gain. He has been sued by the Emgrand group's legal department and was immediately arrested by the public security organs. It can be said that Gerald's house is completely finished. However, Gerald's family is not well known in Aurus Hill, and no one is not concerned about their life and death. Those who really get everyone's attention are the god-level tycoons and the mysterious big figures who will be in the Shangri-La Hanging Garden. Everyone can't wait to know who he is. Is it the same person? Soon, the time came to the wedding anniversary. Because he told Claire a long time ago that he wanted to give her a surprise, Charlie forced Claire to put on a noble and elegant white evening dress before going out. Claire resignedly agreed, and at the same time he mumbled, "It's just going out for a meal. Why do you have to let me put on such formal clothes? Even if today is our wedding anniversary, it doesn't need to be so grand, right?" Charlie smiled and said, "Today is our 3rd anniversary. Naturally, it will be more formal. I have already booked the place to eat. The arrangements for tonight are guaranteed to satisfy you." He has done a good job of keeping secrets these days, and his wife has not made any doubts about it. Claire smiled lightly, and she was very moved. In the first 2 years of their wedding anniversary, the two spent it at home casually. Although it was not unusual, Charlie at that time even had no money, he would prepare some small gifts for her to please her. However, this year Charlie has been uncharacteristically different and kept mysterious, but instead made her unable to guess what new tricks her live-in husband wants to make. After a while, the two of them changed their clothes, went out and took a taxi, all the way to the Shangri-La Hotel. Charlie stepped out of the car, looked at Claire standing next to him, his eyes were indescribably gentle, and said, "Claire, tonight, we are here to celebrate the 3rd wedding anniversary. What do you think?"